other than FC Edmonton, everybody was still playing. I had to name that in there, don't I? But seriously, other than FC Edmonton, I named it in twice, catch that. Everybody could have got into the Final Four, and that's what made the decision day more exciting and grew the Island Games.
We're back at Spruce Meadows with Tommy Wheeldon Jr., the head coach and general manager of Cavalry FC. Off-season chats continue. We haven't really talked much about you. This is usually the time where if we want to get a hold of you, you're splashing pictures of you without your shirt. You're on beaches, somewhere tropical, riding dolphins, crazy things like that. How's that going this year?
No dolphins. No holidays as such. I think it'll be mountains this year. It is what it is. You adapt and overcome to the situation. I think it was always nice. I always liked it at the end of the season. The season takes a lot out of you because you have so many highs, some lows. You give a lot to the season, so you become emotionally exhausted. And I think you have to look at it as a human being as well as you can't pour from an empty cup, and I've got to be fair to my family too. So it's always a case of when the season was ended, before I get into any decision making as a general manager, is I've got to make sure my cup's filled, so I'm not making it any based on emotion, and I'm also giving back some quality time to the family that I've kind of been high by and otherwise, or on the road a lot. So it's we're going to miss that this year, but we'll find a way to connect. Maybe it's the Mason Trafford onesies.
Call back to a prior chat. I always loved when I worked for sports teams that full circle nature of it. You arrive, you compete, everyone collaborates, it finishes, you have some time and you return. And it's a one-off. There's very busy times, there's down times, but there's a completion to it. There's not this, there's always Monday next week. There's very much a task at hand and an objective that's set for a certain amount of time. Where are you at on this one? How do you feel about where you're at now, and with, I guess, as we are approaching with less firm timelines? You don't have a start date. No. You don't have a schedule, at least that we know of. You don't know if you'll have fans. You don't necessarily have 100% of your roster figured out, given you don't know who can get in and out of this country.
I think this one probably, Ryan, will be the hardest challenge yet, and I'll tell you why, because we're in a world of uncertainty because we don't have definitive answers. We don't have a vaccine for COVID yet. We don't have a start date where the fans are allowed in. There's lots of different iterations that the league are working on. We've shown that we can safely perform in a bubble. We've shown that, we've played in front of fans. So once that comes back, we've got both ends of the spectrum. So I think for now, it's a case of players, staff, fans are all looking for certainty in an uncertain world. So that's what's made the negotiations a little tougher. And also add to that, we've had 2-year, you've got these 2-year agreements because you didn't know what the standard of the league is like. So you've got that. You've got ones that are on the up. You've got ones that are at the end of their career, and you've got a managed salary cap that's not moving. So right now, and I said it best, we were on a staff call and one of my assistant coaches talked about it. We talked about the different phases, and essentially we're in Q1. The off-season, as soon as the September 13th the game finished, we then enter Q1, and Q1 for us is the plan for the next season. So we're in the plan. Q2 is pre-season, Q3 is performing, Q4 is playoffs, is the run-in. So right now we're getting everything right in our Q1.
What have you learned from other leagues that are playing in the pandemic, or maybe things that you could adapt, or the CPL's looking to adapt, or maybe a way of thinking that wasn't maybe there before? Technology, stats, access to things, we're doing everything virtually. What's opened your eyes? What might you keep moving forward?
Well, it's interesting because I think injuries are the big number one. There's 200% of injuries. So in doing so, you've got to look at the way you play. You've got to look at depth in the way you perform. Unfortunately, all our injuries came in the attacking unit. So do we train them different? Do we get different types of attacking players? Do we get, so looking at that, it's just the nature of the preparation. Not enough pre-season, not enough strength and conditioning goes in, not enough competitive games before you play. And the gaps between games because of those windows. You look at, technology, VAR and sports science, that's changed the game. I also think with no fans, like even when we played at Island Games, as exciting as some of the games were, it was quiet.
Yeah.
We get a goal advantage here at Spruce Meadows. The home games are important, and getting fans are important, and you're seeing that now in the other leagues. You're learning that actually teams are going to Old Trafford at Manchester United and getting points. People are going to have a go at Bayern Munich and competing in a different way than if they've got everyone coming at them.
Fair enough. Other things that I've kind of noticed that are interesting, substitutions have changed. It might stay. I think it's been really good for the game.
Yeah, I'm torn on that one because I know Klopp and Guardiola are saying the 5 subs. And I get it from the injury side because I think you need it. The other side I'm not in favour of is we got to be careful here, because if we have 5 subs, it turns into a track meet. So you're actually taking away the skilled players, and skilled players can break a deadlock when people are getting sluggish. If you're rotating the bench and changing half your lineup, you might put your athlete, and suddenly it becomes a bit like hockey was and is. So it was a little bit more skilled because it was longer shifts. Now players are going on, what was it now, 25, 30 seconds, sometimes 45 seconds at longest, because it's a track meet and you lose that little bit of skill, I think.
Okay, that's interesting, because I thought that would be something you'd be in favor of. But
I'm torn. I'm torn about it.
Okay. And do you feel like you get a full season, you'll have a better feel on it? Did the Island Games give you enough, or is it one of those, we'll wait and see?
Yeah, I think you got to play a full season on it. I'll tell you what I did like was the Final Four concept, because I know, the sad thing is in 2019, when we talk to foreign players and they Google us and start to learn a bit, all they'll see on the league table is that we were league winners. They don't know that we were beaten by Forge in the playoffs, because it's alien to them about playoffs, but that's a North American thing. And I agree, you need to have something at the end of it to suit the North American market. I think there can be a world where both happens. But what I liked about the new format coming up, it was going to be a single table format, 28 games and then maybe a final 3. But I haven't seen the final 4. I'm inclined to say, well, yeah, have your 28 game season. Do like the MLS does with the supporters shield, or almost does. That's another topic, isn't it? But reward the longevity, because it's like saying, right, gold medals will only be given at the sprint games now because it's the fastest and most exciting. But yet the decathlon's the hardest. So you can still reward that, and then you can still have your playoffs or your final 4 where it's 1v4. Like our game against Pacific would have been 1v4. The game against Halifax and Forge would have been 2v3, and then the final play. I think that's like the Champions League, and I think you've got the best of both worlds. You're seeing it now with the MLS playoffs. They're still exciting, so keep both.
And fan base is engaged. That was the one thing from year one. And who knows if you play it again, you might have a way tighter table, but I don't know how many fan bases felt like their team was in it in the middle of the season or even early into that fall portion of the season.
And I think we've got to know that we're still selling a product here. It's not lost on anybody here. Me, even growing up in a world where it was a league table, we're still selling a sport here, so make it exciting for the fans. So other than FC Edmonton, everybody was still playing. I had to name that in there, don't I? but seriously, other than FC Edmonton, I named it in twice, catch that, everybody could have got into the Final 4, and that's what made the decision day more exciting and grew the Island Games.
I love that you've been a Calgarian for a while, but to see you really throw Edmonton in there at any opportunity, you're one of us now.
Yeah, exactly.
What else has made you a Calgarian? What are you proud of? Give us some great Calgary moments, because this is your home.
Do you know what? There's a couple of triggers for me. And I think it's the sporting run in 2004, the Red Mile, Flames' run, and I got tickets with my dad and a couple of friends, and we went to watch the Canucks game. What was it? Game
6 of round 1.
Game 6, and it went into like triple overtime. And I remember I was like going, I'm like, they can play, and it's like almost 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, yeah, that's how it works. But the game was so intense. There was great fights going on, and we ended up hitting Red Mile afterwards, and it was a stage. And I'd only been here 2 years. I'm like, is this how it happened? Like, is this it? And then suddenly there was the lockout, the year after, wasn't it? And I'm like,
that's right.
And then it took ages for Flames to get back in, but I remember that, and I thought, this is spectacular. And then I have to say, the Stampede is always just something, and it's sad that because of this year, it was the first year in over 100 years or something that we'd never had it. I think those two things kind of locked me in as a Calgarian. And the fact that we're doing an outdoor interview in December is also
Don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. That's what exactly. And you know what's cool though is that as a guy that came here and got to embrace some of the things that are Calgary, I think you've contributed to one that's now becoming a part of the fabric of this community. If people have come to this game, this is unlike any other sporting experience that Calgarians have at their fingertips. And that's not to say better or worse or here's the hierarchy, but what a difference and what a different thing to add to this city. And kudos on that.
Yeah, thanks. And I think I think you and I have chatted on radio about this. I think for me this is part of my payback to a country that's adopted me. I'm a proud Canadian citizen now. My wife and kids are from Canada and from Calgary, and a city that I think I feel like I've been adopted by. And this was my kind of thanks. Look, I'm passionate enough, maybe I'm crazy enough to work to the silly hours to ask enough people to jump on board. And I remember walking on the international ring for the Masters with, it was Lorenzo De Chico, who was the TELUS sponsor at the time, and I knew him through the football world. And I was walking through there and I met Ian and Linda for the first time, and I remember my first comment to Linda was, wow, this is terrific grass. And she was like alert because she likes the appreciation of the international ring and grass. And I said, and I'm looking around thinking, this is like a football pitch. I said, have you ever had like a soccer game here? And she looked at me and she went, well, no, but I don't think, the damage of a 1,500 pound horse and a 165 pound player could do any worse to it. So it just triggered her. And then Lorenzo ends up going back and saying, he runs soccer and things like that, and there's a potential to get involved in the Canadian Premier League. And then that led to, because obviously I was at Calgary Foothills at the time, and that led to conversation saying, well, look, we'd had the call at Calgary Foothills, and I was part of the amateur, like we're still a youth or a pro-am organisation. We had the base, we had everything there. We didn't have the ownership group, we didn't have the facilities, and it was a case of it was a ready-made kit. And the one thing that I think Linda loved and Ian loved was it was about Canadians. And what Spruce Meadows has been built on was giving Canadians a chance. And it started with equestrian, with Mr. Southern doing exactly the same, and we're repeating it now for football.
I'm excited. Let's go. Get the snow out of here. Let's start the season. Get those viruses going.
Yeah.
Vaccines. Viruses going. Vaccines. Yeah. Stop the virus.
Well,
the vaccines.
You have to have the virus, don't you, as part of the vaccine? Isn't that like a flu shot?
This is way beyond my pay grade.
I'm not a doctor.
I'm good at asking questions and not having the answers.
Yeah,
so, but hey, this has been a ton of fun catching up over the off season. And jokes aside, there's a lot of people really excited to get back here. We don't know when, but keep us up to speed. And when it does happen, the fans will be as loud as ever.
Yeah, no, listen, and I think that's probably a message to the fans. Look, we appreciate it. It's been a hard time for everybody. It's been one of the hardest time for our owners to keep this going, for the players and the staff. We went to war, came back with some injured bodies, but we give it everything we have, and we know you did the same. We know the uploads and continue to do so, and we can't wait for the day to be back together. I think that could be an emotional time. Honestly, I think it will be an emotional time for everybody, and it'll be like one big virtual hug when we can clap and salute to the fans. So just charge into the future.
Can't wait. It's going to be great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tony. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, good times. Thanks, bud.